First of all, it's not a $5 footlong anymore. Have you seen Subway's latest garbage? It's
What is it?
some Doritos laid in a 12-inch tray with like some cheese on top for $4. That's their new value.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Doogles, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
Want to welcome everybody to the Skippy and Doogles show. We got a good one for you today. Before we get started, please rate, follow us, subscribe. We love it. We got listener mail going on, skippydoogles@gmail.com. We'll hit on some of that today. Follow us on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call that. And we got the Instagrams going on too. Today, great show for you. We're going to kick it off with talking about what's happening at sales at McDonald's, then go to the job market for young folks, and then wrap everything up with listener mail. At the end, we got something for the premium subscribers. If you want to become a premium subscriber, skippydoogles.supercast.com. You get drops like we're going to do today, talking about specific investments we are thinking about on Inside the Trade. You ready to kick this off?
You sounded nervous through that intro. Is it because today's such a big show? You're just like over your britches excited or what?
Over my britches? Like I'm standing upon my britches? No, I got my britches on, player.
I
got my britches on
off right now. No.
I ain't got no britches on, people. McDonald's. What's going on with McDonald's, Skippy?
Axios is calling it a McRecession.
I got my Mickeys and my Rickies. That's right.
The problem with media today is we jump to conclusions. Like we act like our entire life is the last 5 days, or in really extreme cases, the last quarter. So McDonald's sales are down. I'll walk through some of the details. But the more interesting thing is that it appears to be a trend with other retailers, right? So let me give you the numbers first, and then I'll give you my thoughts. So McDonald's sales fell 3.6% in Q1. Starbucks sales declined 1%, and Domino's Pizza is seeing more traction with their less expensive menu items, right? So effectively, this article is saying, hey, some of the most affordable places to eat are all seeing spending pressure with your low and middle income consumers.
Yep.
I'm not surprised by this at all. We've talked about credit card delinquency rates rising. We've talked about more rejections for car loans. Like there's clearly something happening with this class of consumer, right?
Yep.
I have a firm belief, and I haven't figured out how to articulate this right, but I have a firm belief that in the next 3 to 5 years, there will be a hot new restaurant of some sort. I'm not sure if this is fast casual or what, that will purely be focused on price. The market here, Doogles, is ripe for the taking.
When you say purely focused on price, tell me the difference between that and something like a McDonald's or a $5 footlong.
Okay, first of all, it's not a $5 footlong anymore. Have you seen Subway's latest garbage?
What is it?
Some Doritos laid in a 12-inch tray with like some cheese on top for $4. That's their new value. This speaks.
So
to
it's
my
down.
point.
The price is down.
Price is down. When you can very easily walk into Chipotle and spend $15 on like a pretty much no thrills burrito, there's an end of the market here. I don't know, something that you could sell for $2 to $3 to $5 that actually fills people's bellies. It would be the hottest sensation ever. There'd be more sales than people know what to do.
Yeah, in theory, but you have to be able to also get the ingredients to be able to make something that doesn't murder people for $2.
Do you though? This is why I really wanted to talk about the article. Because Taco Bell is on a roll. Say it with me, people.
Taco Bell is on a roll.
U.S. comparable sales increased 9% in the most recent quarter. Taco Bell is seeing crazy traction with their $5 Lux value box. Have you had a Lux value box lately, Doogles? Because I certainly have. Oh, they're so great.
I have not.
So great. You see now.
I met someone the other day that's never gone to Taco Bell.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Come on.
I know. Like how is that even possible? I went, when you say never, do you mean not this week? What does never, have you never experienced the border Come on.
mean, if someone went through every hour of the day and said, "Have you never been to Taco Bell?" Like, I think I've been to Taco Bell at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m.
That's true.
Always
That's
been
true.
to Taco Bell.
That's true.
Anyway, here's the piece. This speaks to my broader point, and listeners, tell me if I'm crazy here. Taco Bell's representation for value is the key driver of their most recent blockbuster quarter, and they are well positioned to navigate this environment with the opportunity to take share from higher price competitors. I firmly believe that. I think the market for quick service restaurants, shout out Bill Aikman, is missing. It's gone to quick service and completely moved away from value in a way that's really bizarre to me.
So to go back to what you said, when you were saying that you see an offering coming out that's purely focused on price, what you meant was if you look at the different elements of what you could optimize for in a quick service restaurant, there could be service, speed, whatever the things are that you go through. And you're saying price is the one, and value, maybe value even more specifically, is the thing that's been deprioritized. And you see something coming out that says value is going to be the main thing that we get. So we strip away all the frills. Ain't no frills up in Checha. But you can come here to get yourself a $3 meal with the quicks.
It's hard because post-COVID, the service level is so poor at all these places, at least in my experience. Like, it's just absolute garbage. So I'm not sure how much more you can erode the service level. But yes, my point is to have poor service, okay food, and your fast, cheap meal costs $15 is like just craziness.
Yeah, that's.
And I think that is leading to there's certainly some pressure on the consumer, but I think more than anything else, you go, wait, why is my McDonald's value meal costing $12 when I could go to Chili's and have the same thing? Like,
And that's right. There was a day when my son had an amazing soccer game, very proud. I was like, whatever you want. He goes, I want Burger King. I was like, all right, we're going Burger King, father, son, going on Burger King, go through that drive-through. He's like, I want this burger, got that burger. I got a veggie burger. We got his burger. I got a veggie burger. Fries. One set of fries. No beverages. $19.
yeah, this is my point.
I was like, what? And his burger came out, looked like a hockey puck, like the smallest little hockey puck I ever seen. No, sir. But that is I was so surprised by the price. And it'd been so long, I guess, since I've been to Burger King.
Point. Have you been back to Burger King since that experience?
No. Because what you're saying, it's not worth it. Like, that was not worth, I'm going to round it up, $20. It was definitively not worth $20. Because then I start comparing it to a different class of restaurant at that point. Like, would I rather spend $25 and get something that is exponentially better?
Of course you would. And
that.
The service is exponentially better.
Exactly.
Yes, of course you would.
Exactly.
Thank you for articulating my point better than me.
Let's just right back at you, playa.
Let's go.
Should we
Tell
roll
me
on?
about the job market.
Whoo, Derek Thompson. There's a piece in The Atlantic by Derek Thompson that's about the job market. And specifically, it's about the job market for new college graduates. Fine piece. According to the New York Federal Reserve, labor conditions for recent college graduates have, quote unquote, deteriorated noticeably in the past few months. We're now sitting at an unusually high 5.8% unemployment rate for new college grads. And this is inclusive of the quote unquote elite institutions, right? When you go to these schools and you say, when I come out, the reason I go to these schools, because when I come out, I get that bomb.com job. No, my friend. There's a chart in here that's labeled the new grad gap. And this chart, what it shows is if you look at the difference between the unemployment rate overall and the unemployment rate for new grads. So you subtract those two. It shows, because like typically, historically, new college grads are more likely to get a job. But it's showing that in recent times here, you've got this steady decline. And it's really like over the last decade, but it's hit especially more recently. I'm looking at probably about 2016, 2017, and then especially during COVID. it just starts really, really going down. So now it's more likely if you're a new college grad that you will not find something than if you are. Does that make sense? Follow along? Okay, cool. So there are 3 theories that Derek Thompson puts out here. There's one theory, he says, that the labor market for young folks just hasn't fully recovered since the pandemic, or maybe not since the Great Recession.
Yeah. I think there's some truth to that.
Mm-hmm. That's the first theory. And I've seen so many, I'll call them memes. I don't really know if it's a meme, but I'll just call it a meme, around millennials. And they're like, remember that time that you told me that I just hit a once in a generation event? And that's why I can't find a job? Why am I now on my third? Like I'm on my third once in a lifetime event right now. So that's the first. The second theory is that it's more structural. And this gets to a thing we've brought up a few times here on the show around college itself just doesn't have the payoff and advantage in the labor market that it used to.
Well, the only thing I have to say there is there's always a price component. I firmly believe if college cost $10, there would be a great return on investment. The thing these days is, did you see the viral thing going around about going to dental school at NYU?
No, I've not.
The person says, I got accepted to dental school at NYU, but I'm on the fence because I don't want to be $600,000 in debt. And everyone rushes to fact check, going, stop being crazy. Like, you don't need to live on the Upper West Side in this. No, tuition, 4 years tuition, $600K. NYU dental school.
Is that a graduate school? Is dental school like a medical school?
Dental school is a graduate school, yeah.
Okay. Wow.
But
that is
like,
wild.
right? It's a price component. That's the only thing I have to push back there. Keep going.
The third theory is that, and this is the one that is kind of his headliner for the piece, is that it's about AI. That artificial intelligence is starting to take those entry-level jobs, and so therefore they just don't exist right now. So when it comes to the jobs that people are trying to get from these schools that are doing analytics, creating presentations, doing the quote-unquote like the grunt work that is helpful for people to learn how to do the higher order work, when he's saying that is now artificial intelligence. So that last one, while sexy for the headlines, even in the piece, Derek Thompson says, but the data, if you look further, like the data doesn't really back that up. Like, people aren't becoming more productive. Like, productivity in the country is not going up. And so if you really expect that you're now saying where I used to hire 20 junior consultants, I can hire 5, you'd expect for those 5 that productivity has skyrocketed by 4x. And it's saying that is not showing. And so therefore there isn't quite the evidence yet that it's because of AI, but it's still a theory.
I mean, there's some anecdotal evidence. It's more than a rumor that Bain created a presentation design tool in-house that is used by 70% of the workforce and is so good that people immediately started worrying about their jobs. You know, like, you see this. I'll tell you, this has happened to me a fair amount when I think about hiring younger employees at my company. I'm always like, oh, I'm at capacity. Here we go. There's a university right down the street. I have a great talent pool to pull from. And I go, man, the trade-offs of spending 3 hours a day walking this person through the basics of business might not be worth it when I can just up my AI subscription to go super premium, $200 a month. It's different, but there's something to it. Before, I didn't even have that path.
I get that. That's short-term thinking, though. Because when you invest in a person, you're acting as if, in my interpretation of your actions right now, your despicable actions.
Yep,
my
terrible.
interpretation of that is that you're assuming that the value that you're getting from that individual will stay constant for the remainder of their time there.
No, it's not exponential growth. But we all know the investment required for the first 1 to 5 years of their career is entirely different than the investment for 20 years down the line. And it's anecdotal. I'm just saying, every time I do that calculus, I go, I'm not ready to invest in that recent college grad. If I'd hire someone with 20 years experience, because that'd be so much easier for me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. No.
But there's an in-between tool. No. So it used to be like, I'm at capacity and there's no one else to help. Now I'm at capacity and I can spin up some pretty dang impressive resources, especially for like financial analysis, reporting, research for $200 a month. It's like a third door that didn't used to be there. I think it's meaningful. I really do.
I want to take us back to the economy for a second because I don't feel like tearing you down over your nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take us back to the economy. Okay? I just think this is simply a matter of over the last few years, especially if you go back to the pandemic, that, and maybe this is close to the first theory, I think that companies, this kind of backs you up, by the way, but I don't like it. Companies have just not gotten back to full investment generally, and human capital has taken a hit from that. And the first layer of human capital to take a hit is the least experienced layer.
Agreed.
But I don't.
100%.
The difference between that and the nonsense you were spewing a second ago is that I'm not saying, it's not like, I don't think the 20-year person is necessarily better, but in short-term thinking, if I have to think about the dollar I'm spending this year, I'm going to spend it on the 20-year person. But I think that's a short-term. I'm not going to invest because the difference to me is investment versus non-investment. Like if you hire that person and give them the 6 months of like training and ramp up and all that kind of stuff, that's an investment in the future. You got to believe that what you're putting into that person today is investment in the future. Because 2 years from now, 3 years from now, they're going to come up with that fantastic idea that no one thought about because the person that's been in the job, in the role for 20 years isn't going to come up with the new thing necessarily.
You've turned me into like, I was giving a very specific business case for my business. I fully believe in investing in human capital to grow the right type of business. I'm just telling you about there's other factors here that you're kind of glossing over though, which is if I could hire a new college grad that I think is brilliant and hardworking and someone that I get along with and want to work with for 20 years, that investment totally makes sense. I don't think there's a loyalty piece that I think my investment in them would make someone else rich.
Oh my goodness, you are grumpy McGrumpy pants. We got to move off of this. But there's something that's going on in the employment rate of young folks that is fascinating to watch and important, I think, for us to watch.
Sorry, I know you want to move off of it, and it's hard because we're talking theoretical and actual practice all at the same time.
Yeah.
But the important point is that third door. The important point is there are ways for me or other businesses to manage to increase capacity in the short term.
Yes.
And in some cases in the long term without being like, I have no other choice. I have $60,000 in my budget to hire this person, which means I need to hire a new college grad, which means I need to do this. And now I see it. And now I can go, I can get by. I can push that decision down the road 6 months because there's a third door. It's different.
I tried to move on, but okay. So here's the thing. Now I'm going even broader because you brought me back. Now I'm going even broader here. I think there's a bigger issue. Let's even go beyond just this one issue. I'm a macro zoom out for it. There's a bigger issue that is happening in the United States right now, but over the last few years, that is about lack of investment generally in the future. It's so short-term thinking.
Do you
I would
know
even
why?
wrap in.
Because there's uncertainty in the economy. Yes, there's a huge issue here, especially as it relates to human capital. But when policy changes every 24 hours, what happens? I can show you 1,000 graphs about CEOs and CFOs and businesses in general not investing in CapEx because of the uncertainty that's in the economy. So there's a fix to this.
And this has been, a bit, but it's not just right now. This has gone back to the pandemic, if not even a little bit before. So you have, here is the last 8 years, roughly. I don't mean this to be political. Actually, I mean this to be like, I don't know if factual is like the right word exactly, but I think that if I were to say this to Donald Trump, I think he would agree with what I'm about to say.
Just say it's an observation that has nothing to do with politics.
There you go. He operates from a place of chaos. That's how he operates. He throws a whole bunch of things out. He operates from a place of chaos. It's like strategy by chaos. So if you go back to the start of his first term in 2017, we operated from a sense of that, not as strong as we have today, but operated in that world under a person that believes that for 3 years, then got hit by a global pandemic, which, independent of who the leader is going to throw things into chaos.
Yep.
So then we had this global pandemic with companies being like, okay, I don't exactly know what's about to happen next, right? Then maybe you had like a year, let's just call it 2021, maybe, like that's being really generous. We have a year where organizations like, okay, I've got some sight to future now. Then you have a ramp up of inflation.
Yep.
And we talked at the time on this here podcast about business investment at that time and what companies were and were not thinking about at that time around business investment. So then you have that happen. Then chaos comes back in. And so it's been a hot minute since businesses could, outside of data center investments, have confidence in a thing that they can invest in for the long term. And the human capital component is super material here.
I completely agree with that point. And this is not about my business per se, but about the businesses that I'm dealing with. Like, all I will say, if you want to get on your soapbox and talk about investment in human capital, which I completely agree with in concept, is you're not looking at the same P&Ls and balance sheets that I'm looking at, because not everyone has the ability to do this right now, especially with the uncertainty in the economy. Yes, theoretically, what you just described over 8 years is like what happens. It's one of those graphs of the S&P 500 going up with all the highlights of uncertainty here and uncertainty there and all these reasons that you could not invest. You still have to invest.
Yes.
But we're not. Completely do. You completely do.
I know, but we're not.
That's a broad.
We as a country, I'm not saying that there are no individual companies or no individuals that are doing it. In aggregate, though, when you look at data like this, it shows that we are not. I also, to go back to the macro, you take what's happening, and this is an acronym that's going to light up some fires, and I know it. But if you take DEI, and I'm going to say this in the most literal sense of DEI, not any individual policies by any companies, because that can be different. But if you take the fact that in this country, in order for our economy to grow in the future, we have to invest in populations that have not been invested in before so that we can have talent that has not been given the skills, opportunities, et cetera. We have to have that. Like there's no doubt. We need more women to have the skills. We need more people of a darker skin tone that can have the skills. We have to. And that is being extracted out. Like it is forcibly being like completely taken off the table. When you look at since the Supreme Court case, was that almost 2 years ago? Now, like since then, enrollment by Black individuals in these schools has gone down. That's just like fact, right? We are aggressively saying we're not investing in the things that are obviously going to grow the economy in the future. And now it's just showing up broadly for young people. So that's when I say we, I'm talking aggregate.
Okay. We're on the same page there. I think if I was a college grad today, this is a gibberish sentence, sorry. If I had the wisdom I have right now, but I happen to be 22, I would be willing to take a drastically different approach to get my foot in the door where I want to get my foot in the door.
That's right.
Because there's more competition for it's that, and I keep going back to the third door, but there's a way for someone to make something to make the PowerPoint that I might have made for my first 2 years on the job.
I love that you went there because I do agree with that point. I think that's something else. If you take away the structural issues, I think the other thing that I see that's happening is that there's some kind of a muscle that has not been taught and or has been lost about creativity of getting in the door. And I think there was over the last 15 years, there has systematically risen this feeling of, I don't know if it's entitlement exactly, but that's the only word I can think of to describe it. But I don't really think that it's entitlement.
I know what you mean. That's not the right word, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, but there's kind of like there was a belief. If you take the American dream, I think sometime in the last 15 years, the definition has started to shift to something like, if you check these boxes, this happens for you. Versus historically, I think it sat more in the place of like, there's a canvas in America where you have the potential to be able to achieve a thing, but God help you. You need to like fight and claw.
Yeah, you got to go
like,
get it.
Right?
And it's like, so to this actually, is 100% perfect. If I had a smart 22-year-old beating down my door saying, "Let me in," that person is hired. You know, like I'd be like, "We'll make it work." I'm excited about investing in you.
Yeah.
That's not happening in the moment, which is fine. All right, so on Derek Thompson, I am in the middle of the new book Abundance by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. Have you heard all the buzz about this, Douglas?
No bees in my bonnet.
This is a hot book right now. And I read it reluctantly. I started reluctantly because there's so much buzz about it, and because in some circles, it's being thought as a prescription for the left in the next election cycle. So that really turned me off. I was like, I don't really relate with either party at this moment in time. I think they're both broken, and I don't want something that's political. I am enjoying this book so much. I would recommend it. That's where I'll leave it. We can certainly break it down at some other place on the show, but it does an incredible job of breaking down the current state. It's aspirational. It's really fun. A lot of the housing stuff feels like they read Connor Doherty's book, and great research. He's been on the show. Anyway, put that on your reading list. I really think it's great. And then last thing, Douglas, I just looked. Bomb.com is available for purchase. So you have some homework this week. Go see if you can.
How much?
The price is not currently available. I'll have to get that for you later.
I got $10. Can I play a clip for you? It's about the venture arrogance score. I play this clip and I want to get your reaction.
Go for it.
So this clip, this is Josh Koppelman. First Round Capital is one of the largest, well-known, and they're like really good at educating other folks, early stage investment firms. So he's been in the investment game, the venture game, for a hot minute. I've been following him for probably about 15 years, something along those lines. This is him talking to Jack Altman. Okay, I'm going to play this clip for you.
I've created something which I don't think I've shared publicly, but I've run in time for
Here we are, breaking the news.
Let's call it the venture arrogance score. All right, so you take a fund, say that fund is a $7 billion fund. You need two numbers to understand any fund's business model. First is how large is the fund? $7 billion. The next is what percent of a company do you think will own on exit? And so, like, are they going to own 30% like they did 20 years ago, or are they going to own 8% or 10%? And like today, it's trending to 10%. Like, you know, Wiz, an amazing exit, right? Sequoia owned 10%. Index owned a little more. So, like, and I would argue that, like, when you look at prices and the competitive nature, 10% is like a safe assumption, but you could plug in, you know, you could do the math yourself. So if you have a $7 billion fund and you're going to own 10% of the companies that you're in on average, you just figure out, okay, for each turn of the fund, that's $70 billion, right? Like the founders need to create $70 billion worth of value in your basket for your 10% to be worth $7 billion. So if you want to, now, if you're still aspiring for a 4x gross, 3x net, which is sort of what like the venture long-term aspirational goal was, you're now saying, okay, so for each turn of the fund, that's 70 billion. So call that $280 billion.
Right.
And here's where the arrogance scale comes in, because say you raise that fund every 3 years, you know, that's roughly $90 billion a year of exit value that you hope to extract out of the market.
And how much is exiting total?
Well, like the last decade was the best decade ever.
Yeah.
$1.9 trillion total of U.S. venture. And that includes pharma and everything, like semiconductors. So let's just include it all. So that's an average of $180 billion a year. It's a median of about 100. So if you sit down and
but
say—
the outliers matter. So we'll take the average. So it's like you need to catch half.
You need to catch half. By the way, to my knowledge, there hasn't been a venture fund that has ever repeatedly caught over 10%.
Yep.
So you're saying that you and your fund in this hyper-competitive environment with 10,000 funds and 20,000 plus check writers, you are going to capture half of all venture value created every year for the 3-year period in your fund just to generate that.
What's your reaction?
Oh, it's thought-provoking. There's a lot of venture jargon in there, and I've now watched it 3 times, I think. I'm not a huge venture guy. I think what he's ultimately saying is supply and demand matters in every market, and there's too much supply in venture right now.
That is accurate, and I'll put it a little bit differently. I think these two things are the same. The other way that I would put it is that funds have gotten so big that expectations have to get even bigger. And if you actually extrapolate that out, the number that you would need to come back from a value perspective is so unreasonable that it's not going to happen. It's very similar to me to what you've talked about with regard to the U.S. stock market overall. If you look at, what was the number, like 60% or something like that, when we looked at the percent of the total stock market in the world, all stock markets,
Yep.
the U.S. is something like 60%. So you go, okay, cool. So if you have the expectation that the U.S. will continue on the trajectory it is, you have to believe that the U.S. will be 80%, 90%. And you start to get to a point where you're like, okay.
You're like 25% of world GDP and 90% of the value of all the companies. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And at some point, even as he called it the venture arrogance index, I might even go, I think that might be too friendly. I might just say it's like the venture Ponzi index, because as an intelligent venture firm, and I'm not putting this on any individuals or anything of that nature, but I'm saying you've done this math yourself. And at some point when you raise that amount of money, you know it's not going to happen.
You
but
go,
you
the
also
management
know what
fee
your
is pretty nice
Yeah.
on that.
Exactly.
Like, you go, the carry might not be so great because our exit might, but the management fee is pretty nice.
Exactly. And so it's just a Ponzi of sorts. Well, not exactly.
I would
Ponzi.
push
That's
back
not
on
right.
Ponzi. I would say
I know. That word just sounds good in there. It sounds good in there.
Yeah, but it's just incentives are working in the way that incentives work. And until the next round of exits is lackluster and the next time they raise, they have a harder time doing that. I really appreciate you playing it. I think it's a thought-provoking 2 minutes.
All right. Okay. Let's wrap this up with listener mail and then go to Inside the Trade. All right. Hit that jingle.
They fight and fight and fight and fight and fight. Fight, 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 fight. The Skippy and Doogles Show.
This listener mail comes from Ben. Here's what it's at. It wraps up a number of things that we've been talking about lately and kind of the environment as a whole right now in one succinct question. What's an investor to do when the prices for everything we buy will soon rise, while the stock market falters and a recession feels likely after GDP is down last quarter? It's an unsettling time.
Yeah, Ben, I'd like to introduce you to Jerome Powell. He's our Fed chair, and this is his job right now. Try and make sense of this.
It's quite legitimate, this question. I mean, in some ways, it's a bit rhetorical, the question. Like, it's more of a statement than a question. But at the same time, I can see where folks, especially people that are probably older, are sitting at this place where you go, this just seems like a bit of a quagmire. The stock market feels quite uncertain. What's happening with interest rates feels quite uncertain. We seem like we're in a recession. I'm either just retired or I'm retiring soon. I'm just like making this, right, this like situation up for somebody and going like, what do I do? Warren Buffett, 30% in cash. There's this guy named Mark Mobius who's a emerging markets investor. He just came out on Bloomberg TV and was like, I'm 95% in cash. And you're just like, what? What is going on right now? And what do I do?
It's a completely schizophrenic time. I would argue, and we've said this for months, if not years, we've said this for months on the show, cash is more valuable now than it has been in a long time, because you just really don't know what the next 6 weeks and the next 6 months hold. You can make an argument. I mean, we aren't going to break down the current GDP reading, but that's also schizophrenic. Like, there is some massive ups and some massive downs, and there's parts of the economy that appear to be resilient, and there's parts of the economy that are clearly struggling when you go back to talking about McDonald's and Taco Bell where we started the show.
Yep.
Also, though, welcome to investing. It's hard. It's hard. There's always a negative case to be made, and especially when the current administration likes uncertainty for negotiating and other reasons. So It's tough out there.
It becomes much easier in a world where you're not at the 65, 70-year-old time where you can say, if I look 10, 15 years from now, will this matter? Like, it's much easier. It's much easier when you're sitting in that situation and you can continue to say, I'm just going to dollar cost average. If things go down, it goes down. But in 15 years, it'll probably even out. It'll be higher. Right? It's much easier coming from that standpoint than from a standpoint of, I need this cash in the next
I'd say
few
yes
years?
and no. It's always easier in your 20s because you should be actively rooting for the U.S. stock market to go down 50% so
Yeah.
you can buy cheaper and be way richer when you retire. But at the same point, I would hope if you're 65 or 70, you are sitting on target date funds that you've been dollar cost averaging into for 45 years. And at that point, you don't change a thing because back in the 70s, there was some chaos like this. In the 80s, there was some chaos like this. There was a dot-com burst. There was a great recession. Like, if you're really 70, you should not change a single thing. And you should not lose sleep over anything that's happening right now, in my opinion.
Okay. I'll take that. I like it. All right, we're going to shift to the premium part of our episode, Inside the Trade, where we break down what we're thinking about specific potential investments right now. For everybody else, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
And